Your host with the most, the gorgeous goat, Empress Goddess. We're going to get in here with a general look at alchemy.
A general look at alchemy. Written by and present with permission by Luxemore. Narrated by Matthew Schmitz. Alchemy's origin. Alchemy, according to esoteric writers, is said to be the invention of an ancient Egyptian sage called Hermes Trismegistus. The father of alchemy lived in an unknown age of Egyptian history, though he is thought by some Rosicrucian schools to have lived during the time of Moses and the exodus of the Israelites. If true, being an initiate of the mysteries of Isis and Osiris, Moses must have been tutored by Hermes himself, which later enabled him to carry out his mission and to realize his I am presence, symbolized by the burning bush. The various precepts of the 10 Commandments of the Lord of Hosts, revealed to the Israelites by Moses, are the first alchemical steps of purification and putrefaction. Further steps were later added to the Mosaic revelation by the Nazarene Master. Indeed, the Christ declared that he came not to abolish the previous revelation, but to fulfill it. It is thought by that Hermes Trismegistus constituted a title assumed by distinguished hierophants of the mystery schools, in a somewhat similar manner that Zoroaster, the founder of the fire religion, is regarded by certain scholars. Incidentally, alchemy may also be considered a fire religion, or at least a philosophy, because of its symbology of fire related to the alchemical principles, its prerequisite in the art of transmutation, and to the respect and honor paid to it by alchemists. Jewish mystics identify Hermes as the antediluvian prophet Enoch, or Idris, as the Muslims call him, while ancient Egyptians see Hermes as Thoth, the god of wisdom, learning, and writing. He was given this apotheosis, along with Imhotep, the great architect under the reign of King Zoser of the 4th dynasty. It would appear that both men were overshadowed by the archetypal figure of Thoth and were acknowledged as such by both the inner and outer circles of initiates of the mystery schools. Thoth, or his Greek counterpart Mercury, was a messenger of the gods, and as an archetypal incarnation of this god, Hermes lived up to his name by his literary productiveness. Ancient writers declared that the Thrice Greatest wrote thousands of books on what later became known as Hermeticism and alchemy. It is unfortunate that very little of Hermes' works survived the conflagration and destruction of library and books by Roman and Christian zeal in the early dawn of the Piscean Age. The world as a whole is still ignorant of the great loss, and it will take some time before the invocation is made by the masses for the greater light, for disclosure of eternal principles that would shine upon the paths of men, and consequently, for a full restoration and establishment of an occult library of the world, with an archive and database of every known system and tradition of the metaphysical side of life. Although little is known of Hermes, it is evident through the works attributed to him that he was an intermediary of the wisdom ray of the Supreme Being. One of the most famed works on Hermetic doctrine written and in concise form is the Smaragdine Tablet, attributed to the authorship of Hermes. Its discovery is traditionally believed to have been made by Alexander of Macedonia in a cave near Hebron. This conqueror of nations, who had Aristotle for a master, was in search of immortality. Although he failed to attain his personal immortality, Alexander did uncover a philosophical jewel that would have given him what he had sought if he had only applied the principles that the Emerald Tablet contained. Tradition relates that the tablet was wrought out of artificial emerald as a result of transmutation, with the Hermetic doctrine embossed on it. Alchemy, as a philosophy and an art in the Western Hemisphere in the past 2 millennia, existed concurrently in other ancient cultures and civilizations. It was practiced intensely by Hindu yogis and Taoists in India and China. This parallel growth is probably the result of the Great White Brotherhood's periodic presentation of a spiritual method designed for the development of certain types of temperaments and belief framework of those aspirants belonging to a certain era and stage of mankind's collective evolution. Based on this parallel growth of alchemy in the Orient and the regions of the Fertile Crescent suggested to some esoteric historians that alchemy may have had a common origin in that sunken continent, Atlan, or Atlantis, as it is more generally known. Esoteric tradition declares that a handful of the Atlantean root race survived the submergence of the land and transmigrated to Egypt, China, and the Americas. It is reasonable to assume that they brought with them their sciences, art, and culture, which influenced the inhabitants indigenous to the regions where they settled. This would explain the similarities in the traditions and beliefs of native cultures to be found both east and west. Principles of alchemy are principles that nature herself works with, and thus alchemy, scientifically, existed in the inner planes long before it was brought down to the earth plane by master teachers. A study of nature's mysteries would reveal to the discerning student that the higher intelligences, the Elohim, and the great architect of the universe utilized alchemical principles to precipitate the starry bodies out of chaos, out of cosmic root substance, or sunyata, as termed by the Buddhist. Kabbalists believe that Adam was taught by the angels in paradise the art of transmutation to prepare him for his fall and his climb back toward his monad, toward godhood, his involution and evolution from a divine consciousness to divine self-consciousness. There is no general concurrence among scholars as to the origin of the word alchemy. The consensus is that the word is derived from the word chem, the ancient name for Egypt, added to the Arabic article al, meaning the, thus forming the word alchemy. However, Sir Wallace Budge is of the opinion that alchemy comes from the Egyptian word kemein, meaning the black powder or ore, which is presumed to be an ingredient in alchemy. No matter where it secured its name, the word alchemy, it would seem, first came into prominence in the mystery schools in Alexandria. Purpose of alchemy. But just what is alchemy, and what role does it play in the promotion of the welfare of mankind? If alchemy has any true value, it must be based upon eternal values, upon the things that support heaven's purposes. In other words, upon God's plan of humankind's becoming into the true Elohimic image of the divine. If alchemy simply had an earthly objective, masterminds of the ages would not have concerned themselves with it. It would have been considered as something so trivial, so transient, as to distract man from the real work of extricating himself, specifically from his bondage to the carnal self, the kama manas, or animal soul, and generally from samsara. Greed was never the impulse that prompted the invention of alchemy. It was, is, and always will be man's desire for truth and enlightenment of his true nature and estate that motivates him to seek through every channel and avenue for that certain something that he subconsciously feels he had lost and which is his to reacquire. Call it the lost word, the philosopher's stone, or the Holy Grail, it matters not. Alchemy teaches man the principles of regeneration and resurrection, laws of creation and transmutation, laws that would assist man to regain his former estate lost in the fall. This fall from paradise symbolically represents involution of the human life wave into physical matter. The way back to the throne of God is scientifically called evolution, and the acceleration of the latter is the art of the Hermetic Gnosis. This path of return is esoterically and graphically symbolized by Jacob's ladder and the paths of the Kabbalistic tree of life. The drama of Jesus' life is an alchemical allegory of the steps of regeneration and ascension to the I Am presence within, the Father who art in heaven. Orthodox Christianity does not recognize or is unaware of this old truth. and because of the lack of mystical insight among most members of its priesthood, coupled with the absence of esoteric truths in the doctrines and dogmas of the Church, the average Christian is ignorant and unaware of the true message of Christianity, of the light, the Christ substance, and the true saving blood that Christ introduced to humankind. Esoteric Christianity is fundamentally an alchemical science and religion. Its promulgator was a master alchemist, being taught in the initiatory halls of the mystery schools. It is related in the Gospels how the master transmuted water into wine, multiplied loaves and fishes, and walked on water, all of which were manifestations of the applied principles of alchemy, the Hermetic philosophy. Or perhaps these events were all allegories conveying some spiritual teaching. Alchemy is defined as an art of transmutation and precipitation, the changing of base metals into gold. The work of alchemical transmutation is designated as the labor of the sun. This Eye of Ra symbolically represents the perfection with which nature is gradually unfolding in her creations. At the physical level, the sun of perfection is represented by gold. Alchemy is the science and art which hasten the creations of nature to attain perfection at their own respective level. Gold is the perfection attained by metals and minerals. Minerals, however, are also following another line of perfection, that of its ability to sustain life and consciousness. And the acme of organic life is evolving to state where he acquires perfection in divine self-awareness. From the above, it can be summarized that alchemy is the art of raising vibrations of an object in order to hasten its development or evolution into a higher expression or state. The result is perfection of the object of the transmutation. Alchemy's transmission to Christendom. Alexandria was the philosophical capital of Egypt, and perhaps the whole civilized worlds in the early century of Christianity. Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, alchemy, and Hermeticism flowered abundantly. These philosophies are intrinsically related, and, to comprehend the royal art fully, the student of alchemy is advised by master teachers to be familiar with their doctrines. Alexandria's golden age of occult philosophy did not last long, for the reptilian mind of the fallen angels had seized control of the rising new religion of Christianity. No offense to our Christian brothers and sisters, the philosophical sons and daughters of Hermes were persecuted and murdered brutally by Christian fundamentalists and fanatics. Fear and hatred were aroused among the masses, and the outing of the so-called pagan religions from the land ensued. One sad event was the cruel assassination of Hypatia, an illustrious daughter of the mysteries. The widow Isis and propounder of Neoplatonism, she hardly had a philosophical equal during her day, and this caused the envy and jealousy of a certain priest who contrived her murder. During the decline of the Roman Empire, the secret doctrine, or the ancient wisdom, were passed on to the guardianship of the Arabian and Persian mystics. The tenets of occult wisdom were later incorporated into the Muslim faith, with its higher aspects promulgated secretly in the traditional oral manner in certain sects, orders, and mystical groups, such as the Sufi and Dervish orders, and among the community of Druzes in Lebanon and Syria. In the 8th to the 11th centuries AD, in the era of the golden period of alchemic Islamic culture, we hear of eminent names in the field of the royal art, such as Al-Farabi, Rhazes, Geber, and Avicenna. These men studied the mystery teachings and occult wisdom of the Egyptian and Greek schools. They were most notably influenced by Hermetic, alchemic, and Neoplatonic ideas, and the knowledge that they acquired was synthesized with Islamic and Sufic doctrines. The Sufi adepts produced one of the most beautiful symbols of the spiritual unfoldment and progression, the rose. Its symbolism is comparable to the lotus, adopted by Hindu mystics. The Knights Templar was an important link between both East and West, between Islamic culture and the world of Christendom. The alchemical doctrine was passed on by the Sufi adepts to these Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, as the Templars were originally called. Even the mythical Christian Rosenkreutz of Rosicrucianism is said to have acquired his occult knowledge from the Sufi masters and adepts in Arabia. After the days of the disbandment of the Templar Order by Philip the Fair of France and the death sentence of their last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, in 1314, the surviving knights sought refuge in various countries, and in England, some of them founded an alchemical order which later became known as the Elder Brothers of the Rose Cross. It is said that this order comprised 33 members, and that this group exists even to this very day in our computer age. When the believers of Allah invaded and settled in Iberia, they brought with them the secret teachings. Colleges were established that had mysticism, metaphysics, and alchemy in the curriculum. With the establishment of the various schools, the ancient wisdom finally took definite root in European soil, and it spread gradually throughout the other regions of the continent. This expansion was no doubt the result of the efforts put forth by the spiritual hierarchy of this planet. Man's evolution is divided into certain steps, stages, and cycles, and these have timetables or schedules associated with them. It was expedient that the flames of truth and freedom be given to the custodian of the Islamic world if it were not to be extinguished by some of the ungodly minds of Christendom of the Dark Ages, which would cause a setback to the divine plan already established. The deviation from the right use of free will by Christian fundamentalists had made them unsuitable vessels for the Christic wine. In spite of exoteric Christianity's blind attack on the light that gave it birth, the esoteric circle continued its existence clandestinely, preserving the secret teachings of Jesus and transmitting it to a selected few who had the vision of the divine plan within their hearts and minds. Idris Shah, the eminent Sufi of contemporary times, mentions in his book, The Sufis, how an Englishman, one Robert of Chester, was instrumental in 1144 AD in introducing alchemy to the Christian world by translating an alchemical manuscript originally written in Arabic. There were many others like him, for bearers of the flame were not few. Levels of alchemy. Most of the principles of alchemy conveyed to the public were made up of images, mandalas, and jargon. These obscure languages were necessary considering the era that alchemical science was struggling for a recognition from the masses as a system of spiritual development in the mind of ecclesiastical persecution. The mentality of the masses of the Middle Ages were not much different from the time of Jesus. Ignorance, superstition, and fear still ruled the day. The letter of the law, as propagandized by Orthodox Christianity, were still at odds and at conflict with the spirit of the law, as advanced by enlightened mystics. The Inquisition, which lasted for centuries, showed how far the Church had strayed from the original precepts of Christianity. The Christ taught love, forgiveness, charity, and kindness. The Church Fathers and Christian leaders only knew personal ambition, with sadism and egoism set up upon an unholy pedestal. The personal I was worshipped. The Yakida, or the divine I am, was forgotten. Neophyte mysteries were given the keys of interpretation of sacred literature when they were accepted in the various secret brotherhoods. The candidates of alchemical initiation were noticed by the masters when they had proven their sincerity and the sacrifices and effort that they had made. To the world at large, the existence of the masters was unknown and unsuspected, even though their presence in the world destruction of libraries and books by Roman and Christian zeal. To the public eye, alchemical icons and terminology conveyed no sense whatsoever, but the mystiqueness of alchemical texts and images aroused interest in potential practitioners of the royal art, and it turned the average person into a seeker. This was perhaps one of the intentions of the authors of alchemical manuscripts. Modern chemistry, feeling a little perplexed by alchemical ideas, contemptuously considers her sire as a pseudoscience, in the same manner that astrology is usually frowned upon by the students of astronomy. Modern research will in time change the opinions and prejudicial beliefs of a materialistically inclined science. Already, pioneers of quantum physics are hypothesizing what the ancient wisdom has been teaching for ages. One key to understanding alchemy is to determine the objectives and the subject of transmutation. Without keeping principle in mind, one would be lost in the alchemical wilderness. Alchemy is categorized into 4 levels. 1. Physical alchemy. 2. Biological alchemy. 3. Psychological alchemy. 4. Transcendental alchemy. Physical alchemy. Transmutation of one substance into another, such as base metals into gold, water into wine, etc., is the physical aspect of alchemy. It is often referred to as the greater circulation. Much charlatanry and quackery became involved with this aspect, and many people were cheated by rascals who claimed that they had in their possession the philosopher's stone that could effect a transmutation of base metals into gold. Human greed knows no bounds. The poor wishes to be wealthy, the rich aims to be wealthier, and with all their efforts, whether successful or not, sorrow and suffering is the karmic result. Aspirants of the ancient wisdom are taught that the world of form is transient, and that one's happiness should not be based upon something that is illusory. Illusions do not last, and they are not eternal. They bind man to a false sense of human limitation. They enslave man to matter by seducing him to indulge in things that hamper the development of the soul. Truth and the real are that which is eternal, and they are to be found in the kingdom of God within us. Unfortunately, most Christians overlook this one of the most important injunctions of the Nazarene Master. The ancient precepts advises us further that the less earthly desires one has, the richer one truly becomes. The lesser circulation of the herbal family is also included in this category of physical alchemy. The main object of this work is the search for a universal panacea that would cure the ills and sufferings of humanity. This is quite a noble desire should the lucrative aspect and profit motive be absent. It would exemplify the Bodhisattva ideal. In contemporary times, there are many of those who have claimed to have accomplished a successful transmutation in their laboratories, even teaching the secrets of the art to their ardent followers. Biological alchemy. When alchemists realized they were advancing in age and were no closer to the goal of physical transmutation,
For some time, I've been contemplating the peculiar situation that existed in Egypt at the beginning of the Christian
of life, tradition recording that he lived 300 years in the flesh. The Egyptians deified Hermes and made him one of their gods under the name of Thoth. Years after, the people of ancient Greece also made him one of their many gods, calling him Hermes, the God of wisdom. The Egyptians revered his memory for many centuries, yes, tens of centuries, calling
It's very, very much carefree, really carefree, and this energy that is just fresh, it's new, it's the beginning, and it's a really great energy to start off the whole, tarot section with. We also have the sun here as well, and it's just this fresh, clean energy. Now in reverse, it would mean the opposite. Okay, so it would mean the opposite of every single thing I said. So we have the Fool. Then we have number 1, which is the Magician. The Magician is about manifestations. The Magician is about being an illusionist, a trickster. So this could be about dealing with someone who is, someone who says one thing, does another, but the Magician is actually very, very smart, and this is also a card about law of attraction, being able to manifest all the things that you want. In this card, we have the infinity symbol above here. We have, the Magician has their own wand to make things happen. And on this table, you see that there is a wand, a cup, a pentacle, and a sword, which are all of the ingredients, I guess, in tarot. We also have a lot of growth with this, these beautiful flowers. So the Magician is about making things happen. You can, it's also about communication as well. If you're, stuck in a particular situation, this is about being able to get out of that situation. It's also about, fake it till you make it, that kind of an energy where you can really manifest the things that you want in your life. That is the Magician. Again, in reverse, it would mean the opposite. Then we have number 2, the High Priestess. High Priestess is known to be Earth energy, Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn. Is also known to be more so Taurus energy, very intuitive. We have the B and the J pillars, and these essentially are to create balance. Now also you have, this beautiful, this blue. You have this moon here, which is known to be about secrets, illusions. High Priestess is someone who can figure people out. She is someone who stands in their power. Remember, there's also no genders in tarot, so you may be talking about, someone female here, but this card could represent a male as well who just takes on a more female trait. So the High Priestess is very intuitive, very intelligent, can really smell when something is off, when something is wrong, when someone's lying to her, and this energy is very, very symbolic, because it's about this, people just know. High Priestess knows what the truth is. It's all about trusting your intuition and your gut, and just being okay if you're a bit more of a vulnerable person, but making sure that you trust your intuition, because this card usually does come out when the guides are really, really suggesting that it's okay to trust yourself. Even if you don't understand the situation, it's very important to trust yourself, because sometimes you know the answer. So that, in short, is the High Priestess. Then we move on to the Empress. I love the Empress. The Empress is this beautiful energy surrounded by Venus, of course, the ruler of love, and it's this energy about the mother. Again, there's no genders in tarot, so, you could be a male that takes on the Empress energy. The Empress has just so much happening for her. There's harvest, there's also a lot of growth with these trees. She's wearing floral, well, yeah, and she's got this beautiful crown. She's just sitting in her power. She's this mother energy, and this is about being kind, caring, nurturing, loving, unconditional. This can also be about how people perceive the Empress. So again, it's about how you take this card, whether you pull it for yourself, you pull it for someone else, or whether the spirits are telling you that it's linked to one person or another person. And it's really this beautiful energy. It's also a card about spring and summer, and a card where, you know, the Empress just makes people grow and see themselves and has the best interest of others. This is a really beautiful card and a beautiful, 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 beautiful energy. Again, earth energy as well. And the Empress does have a counterpart. Now, the High Priestess also had a counterpart as well. So counterparts are like the opposites, like, you know, kings and queens. So we're going to talk about the Empress's counterpart, which is the Emperor, and then we're going to talk about the High Priestess's counterpart, which actually comes after the Emperor, believe it or not. I know, that's so strange. But we have the Emperor. The Emperor is ruled by Aries. The Emperor sits in his power, is very, very powerful, very confident, has a lot of authority, is someone who is just very sort of fiery as well, because it is, of course, Aries energy. So he is wrapped up in very red energy. However, the thing about the Emperor is he's not very emotional. He doesn't show a lot of emotions. He has a very stern face, and you can see the Aries symbols on all four corners. So it's almost like all four of his edges are very fiery and just extremely, extremely fiery and very much in their power. But the Emperor doesn't tend to show a lot of emotion, and so that is something to take on board with this particular energy, is that there's this lack of emotion but a lot of power. And you know, that's how the two counterparts are able to balance each other, because the Empress is very, very emotional, but they work. It's this opposites attract energy. But when you're reading this for a particular person, it could mean that they're, you know, very much in their power, you know, very honest and upfront, but perhaps they are not very emotional and they just have a lot of that fire within them. You know, not everybody is emotional, but that is pretty much the Emperor. Then we have the Hierophant. Hierophant is the counterpart to the High Priestess, ruled by Taurus energy as well, Earth energy, so Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn as well. The Hierophant is an energy to do with authority and more, I guess, religion and practice of that nature. Is also known to be like a father figure, more long-term, like almost like husband material, because the Hierophant really values commitment, stability, long-term. That's what they value. They really, really want that in their life. And in, you know, it's almost that idea of a key, commitment. So the Hierophant is this figure of, you know, I always think of church as well, and spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, but I also think about order and tradition. So, you know, it could be marriage and commitment and doing things in a specific order, but also this father figure and this figure that really believes in tradition, essentially. So we have the Hierophant, this about order, commitment, values, but very, very strong Taurus energy, and we know that Taurus is very much someone that values commitment and marriage. Now, of course, not all Tauruses do, but Taurus stereotypically is known to be quite a family-driven energy. Then we have the Lovers. This is Gemini energy. This is beautiful. This is so, so beautiful. This is essentially love. I don't know how else to explain it to you guys. We have the sun here. We have this sort of split energy. You know, Gemini is known to be two sides, the twins, of course, but you know, it's almost like you are one soul split into two, and you have found your other person. Or, you know, when you pull this card in a reading and you're asking a question about love, it just signifies that that person is thinking about you, that person wants you, or that you want that person. Or it really depends in which way this card is pulled, but it's a very, very important card. If you pull it in terms of family, it just shows that there's a lot of love there and a lot of support, and it's very equal and very mutual and loving and gentle, and it's this growing, blooming energy. So that's essentially what the Lovers is. If you pull it in the career, again, it shows that, you know, things are blooming, that it's essentially a match for you. That kind of an energy, it's this sort of match made in heaven energy where, you know, your two souls sort of split into, one soul, sorry, split into two, and it's just energy where everything is growing and blooming, and it's like you're blessed by the angels, and everything is just, you just feel like you're on top of the world, essentially, and there's just one path, you know, where you take each other's hands and you just go down that path, which could also indicate marriage and commitment again. So that is the Lovers. Then we move on to the Chariot. This is ruled by Cancer, the nurturing mother energy. This card is all about things moving forward, things progressing, moving on the up. It can also be about traveling, journeys that are being made, and it's all about balance and stability as well. It's just about taking that leap of faith and that journey, and that things will work out. If you're pulling this in terms of family, it's about things moving forward, things progressing. Same goes for career and love as well. And it can, of course, mean that you may take a journey, or you may go meet, you know, someone or a person in regards to whatever that particular question is. Cancer energy is very nurturing, so it is a very positive card. It means that it's essentially on the move and moving very, very well. Again, as I mentioned, anything in reverse is going to mean the opposite. It could mean, you know, obstacles, not being able to move. It could mean that things are a bit stuck right now, etc. So that is the Chariot. Then we move on to Strength. This card is ruled by Leo. It is an energy of, you know, infinite abundance. It is also about feeling that you can overcome all of your fears, that you can tame that lion, you can tame that beast that may be within you that may cause anxiety or friction, or you may feel like you're down on yourself, you may not feel so good about yourself. This is about adapting strength, knowing that you can overcome obstacles if you are able to be strong within yourself. This card is just so beautiful. I know so many Leos that are just so strong but so kind and gentle, and it's that energy that you don't have to be strong and, you know, let go of that gentle side. It's about being gentle but also being able to tame your fears at the same time and hold on to strength. This card is usually pulled in situations when, you know, you really need to adapt to strength. Even if you feel like you're strong, it doesn't help to have some more strength. So this card usually, you know, if you do pull this card, it just means, you know, adapting more strength, having more strength in the situation, or that somebody else needs to have some more strength. I don't know how much more I can talk about this particular card, but it's very, very, it's a great indicator for sure for strength. So I'm just going to take a little sip of my tea. Now we move on to the Hermit. This is Virgo. Virgo likes to analyze, be self-critical, judge things. They like to go within quite a lot. So this is that hermit mode, going and hiding and taking space, taking a breather. This I don't think is a negative thing whatsoever, because it actually means that you can see things a lot clearer. You see that, you know, they're holding this light. They're able to see things a lot clearer. They're able to guide themselves to a better place. So this is a really positive card, but it can also mean that, you know, if you pull this, it could mean that someone else is sort of in a bit of a hiding mode. They need some space, they need time to reflect and analyze and think. Could mean the same for you. So essentially this is what that particular card means, you know, trying to find yourself, trying to find the light, trying to find your purpose, your direction. You're trying to judge things, you're trying to analyze things. It's very much that Virgo card, and once that has been done, then, you know, you're able to see more clearly, essentially. I can't even speak today. Okay, so that is Virgo. Then we have the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune is all about abundance coming your way. It's about things turning. It's about manifestation. It's about positivity. It's about equal balance. It's also about, you know, once the wheel turns, there's this infinite abundance that comes your way. It's also about fortune. So essentially, it's a great card to have. It really is. It indicates that something more is towards you, but something very, very positive. So this is a really great, it's like a good luck charm to have in your reading, because it indicates something very, very positive coming your way. Then we have the Justice card. This card is by Libra. This is all about balance. This could be to do with courtroom issues. It could be to do with legal matters, documents, those kinds of things, but it also signifies karma, which means that things could, what goes around comes back around, justice will be served. If someone treated you wrong or if you did something wrong to them, you will get your karma, they will get their karma. It's about balance as well, because Libra is all about the scales, but it's also about balance and being able to cut out people, places and things that no longer serve you. It's also about karmic situations, lessons that people need to learn, lessons that you may need to learn, and it's just all about getting what you deserve, or getting karma, or things being resolved, justice being served. It's some kind of some kind of a resolution, because it brings balance. Resolutions do eventually bring balance, and that is what justice is all about. So that is the Justice card. Then we have the Hanged Man. Now, from what I know, this is a Neptune ruled card, just because it's very, very spiritual. The Hanged Man is known to be a very spiritual card because they're hanging upside down in this manner, but very in a relaxed way. I know it doesn't look very relaxing, but it's known to be quite relaxing, and there's just so much stillness and calmness, and there's this beautiful light behind their mind which signifies spirituality, them awakening to the idea of spirituality, thinking about things in a different way, a new perspective, should I say. So this is about gaining a perspective. It's about spirituality, opening up to the idea of spirituality, looking at things in a different perspective, and perhaps even looking at things differently. This is about a different way of looking at things. I just said the exact same thing in about 4 different ways. But the Hanged Man is very, very, very much about spirituality, a new perspective, and also being able to sort of look at things in a different way, and be able to analyze things like that. But it's also about meditation and essentially taking a bit of time and kind of your own path as well. So that is the Hanged Man. Then we have the Death card. Death is ruled by Scorpio, water sign of course, very, very, very tumultuous. I hope that's the right word that I just used there. But essentially death is about a rebirth, it's about transformations. So someone could go through a transformation, you may go through a transformation that could be quite emotional. Death could actually also mean death. It could mean illness, it can also, but in most cases it actually does mean some form of a rebirth, transformation, within yourself, within somebody else, a change, and it means, like a new self, being able to move from one situation to another, but finding that you've transformed yourself into a different person, a better person, that kind of a thing. It can also be a huge emotional transformation, so where someone was not so emotional before, maybe now they're much more open, they're much more relaxed, maybe they're less anxious, or they're more sort of open to new ideas, new things. It's a rebirth of character as well, more so it can be that. So that is death, that is what it signifies. So these are of course the major arcanas. Then we have Temperance, which is ruled by Sagittarius. This is an energy about going with the flow, going within. We have this beautiful angel, it's this warm energy with the sun in the background. You've got this beautiful water here, which signifies an emotional balance. You've got these cups with the water going back and forth, but it's about going with the flow. Patience is a virtue, letting things happen, letting things go, letting things grow as well. Just, really thinking spiritually as well. We have some light behind the mind. This is about patience as a virtue.
Let's see what we can get into here. like real vivid. It really ain't a damn thing on real shit. I'll find something here and then I'll come back. Finish doing a few things right here around the house.